They said it like gum they couldn't quite spit out, like the word offended their breath. Old-fashioned. He said it real smooth with his hand half covering his mouth like that made it softer. Love what you stand for, Ms. May. Just wondering if you're too old-fashioned for the scope of this deal. I smiled a smile my mama taught me, tight across the jaw, no teeth. Baby, slow don't mean stuck. A rocking chair still moves, even when it's not going nowhere fast. You wait till you see how deep my roots run. The other suits chuckled, tried to bury it in their notepads. Joylene stopped tapping her pens for a second and gave me that look, eyebrows crawling toward her hairline like they wanted to fly off her face. I had on my cream linen slacks and my charcoal gray blouse, sleeves cuffed just above the wrist. My hair was high, braided back, and wrapped in a warm cinnamon-colored head wrap with gold thread peeking through like it had something to say too. I wore my grandmother's earrings, the ones that jingled when truth got heavy. Behind me on the conference table was a green leather folder with my name engraved by hand. My name. Not Ora's Angels Cleaning Company, not LLC something something, just Ora Mae. And that folder held something them boys wasn't ready for. The final signed pages of a $1 million contract. They just didn't know it yet. The conference room smelled like printer warm-up and breath mints. One of those midtown towers that cost more to heat in winter than my mortgage did in 2 years. The windows were floor-to-ceiling drama, overlooking a city that never said please when it took something from you. Joylene leaned in close, still whispering like the room wasn't ours. Mama, you really gonna submit it that way? The spreadsheet's in. I know what's in it, I said, still looking straight ahead. And we not changing a word. Joylene sunk back in her chair, the way daughters do when their mamas remind them they still grown. Mr. Weiss, or Weston, or whatever, cleared his throat at the head of the table and leaned forward, resting clasped hands on an oak that looked shined too new to have ever held real work. We have your numbers, he said, but the delivery form seems, let's say, unconventional. What he meant was, written by hand, inked in human, felt by fingerprints. Typed documents was Joylene's world. Mine was pen and prayer. He flipped a page. Handwritten schedule. Bound logbooks. He raised a brow like it might float off his face. Even your invoice model uses carbon copies. I grinned. Sure do, 3 parts. Top for you, middle for records, yellow one stays with us. Silence. He blinked and met eyes with one of his colleagues like they were trying to share a joke without laughing. And there it was. That look. They wasn't going to say it, but they all was thinking it. She too old, too slow. Cute story, but not built for what we need. It didn't offend me. What should offend me is how much they've already overlooked and how long I stayed quiet to be polite. Because the irony? Their whole facility was a mess. I seen it just 2 weeks before. Their regular vendor botched a quarterly deep clean, left their executive restrooms looking like Sunday morning after the club. Employees were complaining. Audit deadline coming up. They needed restoration. They needed quiet excellence. They needed me. They just couldn't see it because I still use ink, not Dropbox. I nodded toward the window. You know what that city out there is full of? Mr. Westerweiss blinked again, like I was off script. Property, he guessed? No, sir, regret. I let it sit a sec. Joylene leaned in, finally ready to stay out my lane. You ever clean regret off a baseboard? I asked, tilting my head. Off the walls? Out the air? No one answered. See, you think we just move dirt, but we pull shame out the corners of boardrooms. We don't just scrub, we sanctify. Now they looked interested, or stunned. Either way, silent. I stood up then, big, slow, not to leave, but to breathe deeper. The sun was climbing now, shadowing the carpet in long golden stripes. The light hit my earrings and threw color. You called me old-fashioned like it's something to apologize for, I said, walking toward the edge of the table. But baby, old-fashioned got me through poverty and prayer rooms, got me trust without a website, got my company referral only and booked out for 6 months. I placed the envelope on the table. This is our final offer. Mr. Weiss tapped the folder, slower this time. This is signed? With the same pen I used to register my business 20 years ago. I started walking to the door. You take your time, look over it. Just know when y'all ready to clean the soul of that 5-story firm y'all running over there, mine's the only name that left the rooms better before we even showed up. I didn't slam the door when I left. Didn't need to. Joylene followed half a beat later, heels clicking with just enough tremble to feel like pride catching up to peace. We hit the elevator. She was smiling now. You really wrote that contract with a blue ink pen, huh? Yep. And you signed it, same one. Still got ink left. She shook her head, tried to hide that joy behind sarcasm. I was going to kill you if you quoted another Proverbs verse in there. Ting! Elevator doors opened. Lobby. She looked at me. What if they don't pick us? I didn't walk in there to get picked, I said, pausing at the glass door. I walked in there to remind them who invented the game, while they were still trying to download the app. The car ride was smooth, quiet. We hit a red full of ghost-stop traffic, and Joylene pulled over like the silence had something to announce. Mama, she said. You know they was talking about you. Before we got there. I turned to her, didn't blink. They said you couldn't handle contract volume, said you were slow, said your stuff should be automated, that you don't scale. I waited, and that she still handwrites quotes on the back of tithing envelopes. Now that got me. I laughed so hard, my chest shook. You mad? She asked. Nah, I said, wiping a tear. That's accurate. Them little white church envelopes strong. I turned to her. Baby, let 'em laugh. You know millions of black women made a living using scraps and silence. Let 'em judge how I deliver. What matters is how I show up. Joylene looked away, then back. You sure this'll work? I nodded. They said I was old-fashioned, so I wrote 'em a contract in cursive. Cue voicemail alert. She picked up her phone, squinting. Her mouth opened. Warm breath, dry throat. When she whispered, Mama, I looked sharp. What? She handed me the phone. An email opened up. Subject line read, Final contract accepted. Then the subline punched through quietly. We choose Ora Mae. I took a breath so deep it touched my ancestors. Mama, Joylene said again, barely there. I whispered to the car windshield itself. They called me old-fashioned. Then I smiled. But I just closed the $1 million deal. That was the year the church used my last $42 to fund a bake sale and never paid me back. That's also the year I wrote Ora's Cleaning Angels on a Post-it note, underlined it twice, and stuck it on a fridge held together with prayer and peeling magnets that couldn't even hold up worry no more. We were living in a 2-bedroom shotgun house off Chestnut and Lee in Taylor, Georgia. The AC was window units, the carpet was left from somebody else's memory, and you had to slam the front door twice if you wanted it to shut right. But that kitchen table? That table is where I built something folks now call an empire. The first time I wrote a quote for a client, it was on the back of a church bulletin. I used blue pen, cursive neat like I was writing a love letter. And in a way, I was. I was sending a promise through that pen stroke. I would treat their space like I treated my own heart. Slow, careful, clean. And I meant it. Caleb was still in high school, and Joylene had just dropped out of nursing school for the second time talking about, Mama, this ain't for me. And all I said, all calm, was, then baby, figure out what is. But this pantry got more space than food, and we both grown now. She didn't like that, but she understood it. She took a job at the front desk of a local doctor's office and came home every evening like them phones owed her money. Meanwhile, I'd be rinsing out mop heads, baking cornbread for Tuesday night supper, and counting crumpled cash from 2 clients and 1 favor. That first year, I booked 11 clients, all word of mouth. 10 paid. 1 said, oh, I thought this was just a ministry thing. I smiled, packed up my supplies, walked back to the van. Didn't say nothing. But in my chest, I whispered, ministry don't mean I clean for free. Each job I wrote down in a spiral notebook I got from Dollar General. The kind with a crooked metal spine and college rule lines tight, like they were trying to keep your writing straight if everything else in your life wasn't. Under client, I wrote their names. Under FE, I wrote what my pride could afford to charge. It wasn't what the work was worth, but it was what I could say out loud without passing out. Aunt Shine told me, girl, don't undercharge. You ain't wiping windows, you restoring folks' peace. I said, they ain't gonna pay $75 per room. She said, then clean with silence and bill 'em with boldness. By year 2, we had a name folks repeated like testimony. Ora's angels. And it wasn't just me no more. I hired my first helper, Miss Darlene from down at First Bethel, who lost her job at the daycare when they shut down from mold. She cried the first day I handed her the branded smock I had Joylene's cousin sew. Light teal with white stitching. She said, "This all I got now." I said, "No, baby, this all we need." The real tension came with the growth. Joylene. She was always proud but panicked. Not that I was doing it, but how I was doing it. "Mama, can we at least make an Instagram page?" "No. How are people supposed to request bookings?" They call me. "Lord, Mama, you don't even text back." "That's because texting don't give me tone. I need to hear folk." She grew frustrated. Clients would ask, "Do y'all have PayPal?" I'd say, "Cash only till the check clears the first time." They'd laugh. I wasn't joking. Then came the first city bid posting. A small courthouse asking for community vendors to clean after hours. Joylene brought the flyer to me like it was a baby announcement. "Mama, this could be your first government contract." "How much?" $17,800 for 3 months. I blinked fast. That was more than I made in 15 Christmases. We printed out the forms at the library. The office closed in 22 hours. I filled out everything in pen and told Joylene to drive me back to drop it in person like I always did. "Mama, don't fax." We pulled up at 5:12 p.m. Receptionist said, "Drop-ins closed at 5. I begged. She said, "You can email it by midnight." I stared at the phone in Joylene's hand like it was from Egypt. "Mama," she said, "we have to send it digitally. Y'all will get disqualified." I looked at my carefully printed forms, paper-clipped like a school project with margin notes and check marks. Suddenly it hit me. I've been doing business in a way that didn't mark timestamps on uploads, only on souls. "How do I know they'll open it?" I asked. Joylene screamed, hands to the ceiling. "They will! That's how the system works!" And that was the day I felt the click start to split between me and my daughter. Not love, but respect. That thing started to hairline fracture. We didn't get that bid, but 2 weeks later, they called and asked to hire me personal to redo the janitor closet that failed inspection. I charged them $500. They paid in cash. I tell you this, old-fashioned don't mean outdated. It means weather-tested. But Lord, that friction stayed. My slow quotes, my long calls. Joylene was tired of clients calling back 3 days later like, she said she'd check her notebook. I tried to meet in the middle. I let her set up an email. I got exactly 4 messages before forgetting the password. By year 10, we had 3 vans, 12 part-timers, and uniforms so crisp, Miss Darlene told me she wore hers to church under her coat when she couldn't afford a new dress. Every lunch break, I wrote notes in boxes. "Leave the hallway lemon-scented, not pine. Pine smells like secrets." Wipe down the doorknobs even when they don't look touched. Be quiet when sadness lives here. Clean soft. By year 15, we wrote a care guide to grief cleaning, for widows, for untidy sorrow. It went viral on Facebook. 400 shares. I didn't even have the password. Mr. Harmon said somebody posted it for us from a funeral director we helped. That's when the city called. That's when Joylene got serious. That's when the problem really broke surface. She had applied on our behalf for a major contract. But she didn't tell me. She made her own version of my invoice forms, cleaned up the logo, tried to scale me. She was helping. She was hiding. I didn't find out until I saw an ad with my company name, looking nothing like mine. Cleaner, sure, but not mine. When I asked her, she froze up like truth was stuck in her teeth. "Mama!" "Answer me. I thought you'd lose the bid if you submitted your usual stuff." I blinked slow. "Baby, that stuff is the miracle. That stuff is why we exist." She looked away, and something snapped in me. Right then, I decided to sharpen my way with my own blade. Mr. Harmon showed up the next day, said his nephew worked in digital freight, offered to help me revamp my own system. Legally, authentically, no Polish without purpose. I took it, built a system with the same slowness, just made it mine. A month later, we submitted one bid with soft fonts, real language, and handwritten notes scanned with tears. They called. They said, "Whatever you submitted, we never seen anything like it." And now we're here. On the cusp. Still pen, still prayer. Right before the world realizes, old-fashioned was just honesty wearing its own shoes. They said, "You move slow, like I didn't run a business with my bare hands and a jug of bleach." Said, "You stubborn, like I hadn't spent 10 years saying yes to things I couldn't afford just to make this dream real." But when it's your own daughter looking at you with that polite, painful tone, when the question ain't even being asked out loud anymore, it hit different. It had been 6 years since I filed the LLC. Ain't nothing fancy. Ora's Cleaning Angels, bent script logo on a magnet stuck to the side of my borrowed van. Real low budget, but clean ran deep. I was wearing my faded branded t-shirt and my jeans with the knees gone shiny. Hair up in a messy twist, no earrings, and my soul begging for 15 minutes off her feet. I was standing in front of the bank teller trying to cash 3 checks, 2 dated, 1 post-dated. Joylene hit me up while I was 5 minutes into my headache. "Mama, come by the campus," she said. "Career fair. You need new clients. This how you scale." I told her, "Baby, I don't scale. I serve." She groaned. "Mama!" "I'll be there." She hung up before I could exhale. That career fair was full of women my daughter's age, but not my spirit. Polished teeth, plastic pumps, synthetic joy. I walked in with purpose, clipboard close. My table was bare, but solid. One of them girls looked at my setup and asked dead serious, "What system you use for bookings? Zen Class, ScrubSync, CleanPro 360? I said, "I got Caleb. Writes it down in the shift log and calls folks if we late." She blinked and smiled like I was an endangered species. Joylene came around the side later, waving a laminated price sheet in bright colors. "See? That's the difference," she whispered to me. "They got QR codes. You got handwritten dividers. You need to digitize, Ma." "Honey, I don't need to digitize. I need to do the job right." She looked embarrassed. That's when I first felt it. Not her anger, her shame. Back home that night, I sat at the kitchen table with a ledger book older than some of my clients' marriages. I wrote out line items, careful with every decimal. Side lamp on full glow. Ania, just 6, fell asleep at my feet, curled around my work slipper like a cat. Caleb walked through, looked at the stack of flyers I intended to pass out next morning. He said, "Ma, you know you can pay someone on Twitter to do this, right?" I kept writing. "You think Twitter box up my rags when I'm elbow deep in somebody's tile grout?" He sighed, laid $40 on the table. "For print costs," he muttered, walking off. Aunt Shine was always the one cheering from the porch steps. She'd say, "Baby, don't worry about speed. Worry about stamina." I'd nod, sipping my K-cup tea slow even when I ain't had time. "You ever seen a seed hurry?" she'd ask. "It got to get buried first, then it break, then it bloom." Blooming didn't feel like no blessing back then. I'd clean houses from 6 a.m. to 4 p.m., then do admin till I fell asleep with a pen mark on my chin. Joylene would come in around 8 p.m. with some new bright flyer idea or a business certification link printout, talking about EPA-compliant policies will take you next level. I'd thank her every time, but I never read 'em, 'cause I was out there building bones, not branding. Then came Devon Properties, a new luxury subdivision down on Trace Road. Same ones that used to only work with one cleaning vendor, a big slick chain with digital lockers and GPS-tracked job sheets. But one of my old clients from Bible study? Her nephew worked admin on their vendor team. He told her, "Tell Ms. Ora to send a quote. Their new vendor just messed up a model home before a realtor tour." I dressed sharp, blush-toned blouse, black slacks, braided my hair down, and wrapped it in a copper sheen scarf with gold thread. I wore my black open-toe heels that clicked loud enough to say, "Don't discount me." I showed up. Eyes looked me up. Vendor table had gold foil decals. Mine had laminated sheets hand-punched and spiral-bound. The man looked at my quote packet and squinted. "Is this scanned?" "No, it's signed, here, by me." He rubbed his forehead. "We usually get emailed PDFs. Well, it's physical, like floors and baseboards and broken trust." "Excuse me?" "I don't clean systems," I said. "I clean sorrow, better than any app." He stepped back. "Didn't hire me." Joylene was furious. "I told you to use the digital intake toolkit." "I didn't build this off a toolkit." "You go get these clients and I'm still paying for your invoice paper." We argued that night so hard, even Ania went quiet. "You want me to be a corporation," I said. "I'm still a mission. I started this cause nobody would hire me with a GED and a prayer. I ain't trying to scale. I'm trying to mean something." Well, meaning don't pay bills, she said. Then Caleb stepped in from the back room, arms crossed. Neither does pretending corporate tech makes you smarter, Joy. Joylene stormed out. I sat down, breathed in. The ledger looked guilty on the table, so I closed it for a moment. 3 months later, word of mouth brought me a woman named Ms. Ernestine. She lived 2 streets over from Devon Properties and whispered into my hand as I cleaned her tile. They replaced their vendor after mold went public. I said, I ain't heard. She smiled slow and said, Then I hope you saved your bid, baby. I kept my copy. Just wrote your name with hearts around it. Might be romantic to the right person. I laughed so hard my ribs hit Joy. When I knocked on that door again 2 weeks later, I brought something new. The same papers. But this time, I didn't wait in the lobby. I walked through the back where the staff come in. Somebody recognized me. Ms. May, you came back? Twice if I like how I'm greeted. They laughed. Come on around. I did. This time I spoke before they did. You need a miracle, not a market average. I dropped the file. This is still my bid, but I'll tell you what's extra. He raised a brow. I schedule based on grief hours, places where somebody died. I got folks who can handle that. You got messy tenants. I got child-proof language and military-grade patience. Only thing on paper is the price. The worth? You gotta hire me to know it. He said nothing. I said nothing back. Exactly 1 week later, I got an envelope in the mail. No stamp, just a handwritten note. We'd like to try your way. Joylene came home and saw the envelope on the table. She sat down across from me, so soft it felt like prayer in motion. You really didn't change a thing, did you? Nope. You didn't use the toolkit? Nope. How much they paying? I slid the contract her way. Her eyes widened. She whistled. You serious? I stood up, walked to the stove. Start with what's in your hands, I said. She whispered, You were right. I stirred the greens, still smiling. But baby, let me tell you something. That piece was short, 'cause what she didn't know yet is she was about to go behind my back, and that next storm would almost drown her faith in me completely. I should have known something was off the moment I saw the new printer box leaning by the fridge. Brand new, still in the shrink wrap, big and shiny and screaming money we hadn't talked about spending. Joylene was sipping cold tea straight from a mason jar like she ain't owe this house a conversation. She sat at my kitchen table in one of her flowy mock designer blouses, laptop cracked open, one headphone in like she halfway listening. You bought a whole printer? I asked, dropping my grocery bag on the chair. With what discussin'? She took the earbud out and waved her hand like my question was a fly. For the contract clients, Mama, you said we needed to look polished. This is step 1. That ain't step 1, I said. That's step 10 showing up on the wrong staircase. She rolled her eyes, closed her laptop harder than it needed. Mama, that one word, all tone, no text, tired mixed with sass, like she's been raising me and not the other way around. What, Joylene? She sighed like wisdom annoyed her. Look, I've been sending proposals for us through the county procurement database. I blinked. You done what now? Just the ones we missed, Mama, she said quick. The ones where you forgot or didn't know the portal. I leaned in close, arms folded tight. Forgot? Or didn't choose? She didn't answer. I put one hand on the kitchen table. You been submitting under my name? She looked away, started mumbling. Who did the work? I snapped. Who wrote the quote? I just formatted it better. Made it cleaner, clearer. Felt like my knees bent a little. You edited my quotes. I helped. You changed my words. What else you change? She hesitated. I saw it then, right there in her mouth, the pause that holds history. What else, Joy? She walked to the counter, picked at an invisible crumb. I made an executive decision. You were going to lose Camden Towers again. Camden Towers? I gripped the back of the chair to keep my hands from shaking. We missed the bid deadline, she said, so I called someone. You what? I submitted through their auto form, rewrote the about section, tightened your language, used a newer client list. A beat passed. They accepted the bid. And there it was. She thought she was saving us. She thought I would be proud. But all I saw was a daughter too ashamed to believe her mama's voice still had currency in this world. You forged my name? She stared blank. You made a deal for my company, in my name, using my story rewritten to sound prettier? Silence. Say it. She nodded. Yes. I closed my eyes. Outside, a bird hit the window, flew off. Didn't die, just collided and tumbled back into the sky. I envied it. I didn't speak to her the next day. Went about my jobs like usual. Cleaned 2 condos and a salon suite, finished a deep clean for an assisted living center where the nurse gave me a chocolate bar and said, "Y'all always leave the rooms feeling like Sunday after church." Meant to feel good, but pride didn't fit right that day. It felt like a blouse buttoned wrong. Back home, her car was gone, and on my front porch sat a tablet I didn't own, open to a portal I didn't ask to see. Her login, county contracts. I scanned it, saw Ora's name everywhere, shined up, slimmed down, branding words tucked neat into a style that sounded good but ain't tell the truth. No baseboards mentioned, no grief cleans, no restoration days. Just flexible pricing, rapid response team, competitive bid structure. I clicked a paperclip icon, opened my own company proposal. She had replaced my letterhead with a Canva template, reworded the origin story. Removed this line. "We wipe people's pride off the floor gently, 'cause we know what it costs to drop it." Replaced it with, "We focus on efficient solutions for upscale clients." I laughed, sat down on the porch, thinking my breath might come back. I whispered to the wind, so the people who called me old-fashioned were right in my own house all along. That evening, I asked her to meet me at Jubilee Diner, neutral ground, same booth we used when she told me she was pregnant, where we cried over her first heartbreak, where we sat when her daddy passed. I came with the folder, not the one we submitted to Weiss and them, the one Joylene rewrote. She didn't look surprised when I laid it out between the salt and Splenda. "I thought this would help you," she said. "You thought wrong. I made us look relevant. You made us look borrowed." Her hands rolled into small fists, not aggressive, just defensive. "I didn't change your heart, Mama. I just polished it." "No. You sterilized it, made it sound like everybody else. And that's the same as erosion, baby. Cut by cut till legacy turns to sale price." Her bottom lip trembled. "I wasn't trying to erase you, but that's what you did." I pulled out another paper, a copy of my very first flyer, printed on church bulletin backings, bordered in highlighter. She picked it up like touching it might collapse something inside her. She smiled. Then she cried. "Mama," she whispered, "I thought if I didn't modernize you, they'd reject you. And if they rejected you again..." She choked back the rest. "I couldn't stand another door slam in your face." I nodded, tears burning warm through mascara. "Baby, I ain't scared of rejection. I grew up birthed in it. The only thing I fear is changing so much I forget who carried me when I started." She reached across the table. I took her hand. It was warm, still trembled, but we held on. 3 days later, she showed me her resignation letter. From the board she established for our advisory council. She said, "I need to relearn how to follow." I said, "You need to remember I asked you to walk beside me, not ahead." She nodded. So we started over, together. The pen was heavy, not in weight but in truth. That same blue barrel pen I'd used to register the business all them years ago, buy my first mop bucket from the flea market, circle my own name on a prayer list. I was holding it again now, only this time in front of a table full of dry smiles and crossed arms. "Ms. May," said the woman with the high cheekbones and Bluetooth earpiece, "before we proceed, can you confirm your legal capacity to manage contracts of this size?" I blinked real slow, not confused, just waiting for God to make her repeat herself without me having to be rude. Joylene tensed beside me. She reached under the table and squeezed my knee. I spoke calm. "Ma'am, I've run this company for 15 years. Every sink scrubbed, every payroll signed, every van filled with gas. That been me. But if you looking for initials behind a name, understand this, what I don't have in degrees, I make up for in repeat clients who whisper, 'Thank you,' louder than your Allstate logo says stability." Silence. Then someone at the far end cleared their throat. "That's not what we meant." "It's exactly what you meant," I said, still smooth. "Now let's stop slipping on semantics and get to what really make y'all nervous." Eyes darted. Mr. Harmon was there today in a collared shirt that still had his charm pressed into the collar. Quiet, watching, support. He leaned forward. "What makes us nervous," he said, "is we've never had a service provider submit their bid handwritten. And yet..." He flipped the folder open. "This is the clearest scope language we've received this year. That lit the room different. Somebody's pen stopped tapping. I tilted my head. See, clarity ain't in the font. It's in the intent. Behind me, Joylene nodded. She'd earned her way back to my side after last month, worked extra, listened more, let me lead. This was the final bid for the municipal expansion contract, the big one. 6 figures from the city for facilities maintenance, long term. The job every other firm had lawyers pad their proposals for. Me? I submitted mine sealed in a school folder with a post-it on top that said, "God, don't bless shortcuts." They tried to test me, asked if I could staff it in a week. I pulled out my schedule book, showed them I already hired 5 new employees and had cross-training started. They asked if I could match the proposal specs. I asked which part. They said disposal and chemical rotation. I smiled. Page 4, I answered before they found it. By the time we got to the facilities walkthrough, I had already walked it 3 times. I cleaned Section B myself last Tuesday during my lunch break downtown unannounced. Wrote details on the inside of my palm. Detergent needed near the boiler. Cracked grout near men's locker room. Mr. Harmon winked. What Ora wrote in blue ink, he said. More valuable than what y'all wrote in a marketing deck. After the walkthrough, we met under a small tree behind the courtyard. Joylene knelt to fix her heel, said, "Mama, I think they're serious." They realizing that hustle don't sound like speed. Sometimes it sound like breath on tile grout at 7 a.m. She paused. "You not mad I adjusted your terms? For the new employees, I mean." I shook my head. "Not mad. Just glad you remembered to ask this time." We laughed. Then I reached in my tote, pulled out 2 uniforms. Folded, teal, fresh. One said, Joylene, Ops Manager, Ora Angels. The other read, Ora Mae, Founder. She froze, took hers with trembling fingers. "You earned your seat," I said. "Now sit in it on purpose." Her eyes flooded. "Mama!" I touched her wrist. "Just honor the table, that's all I ever asked." Inside, city leaders started asking for revisions. Suggested combining us with another vendor to share load. Mr. Harmon stood up for me this time. She just outlined in 5 minutes what took our other firms a month. Why dilute that leadership? Heads nodded slow. Next motion? Approve the contract pending one final review. Council vote would be Friday. I stood up last. "You want to know who I am?" I asked. They quieted. "I'm the woman who carried ammonia smell into church because I left one mop job and walked into a funeral. I'm the woman who didn't go digital, not because I couldn't, but because I made a ministry out of looking folks in the eye. I'm the reason we say Ora's angels don't clean for ego. We clean for dignity. And if that's too old-fashioned for you, then y'all better pray new fashion don't fail when the bleach spill." With that, I handed them a knife-free smile and left. At the church that Sunday, Pastor Davis called me to the front. He said, "Saints, we about to celebrate something I don't believe's ever happened in our city before." He turned to me. "Ora Mae, you tell it." I shook my head, tears already ready. He handed me the mic. "I just want to say this," I said. "If anybody ever told you that handwritten don't hold water, show them how much ink God put in your signature when he wrote your name in favor." Crowd stood up, shouted, cried. Even Joylene screamed, arms in the air, Kleenex in hand. Monday morning, the vote passed. Unanimous. Contract awarded. $1 million deal signed with the same pen I took notes in 6th grade Sunday school with. But that wasn't the real win. No, the real win was Joylene printing out the proposal that night, sitting on the couch, highlighting every paragraph with pride. She turned to me and whispered, "This ain't a proposal anymore, Mama. This right here is scripture." I just nodded slow, then told the Lord, "Thank you for letting me spell glory with my own hand." They say the reckoning comes loud, but mine came with a pen click. Floor 5. Downtown office tower. October wind fighting with the revolving door as I stepped through. Emerald green suit catching morning light like it had a sermon to preach before noon. Cream blouse underneath. Gold hoops in my ear, not jingling this time. They were still, silent. Like the calm that shows up once you've already done the math and know the numbers add up. Hair braided close to my scalp, twisted into a low swirl bun like time itself curved around my head. No wrap today, no scarf, just skin, steel, and story. I walked in next to Joylene. She didn't say much in the car, just watched me drive the speed limit on purpose. The silence between us wasn't heavy, it was reverent, like grief that turned respect. They said 9 sharp, I told her, pulling into the garage. We're 5 minutes early. Good, I said. Let 'em wonder if I need them. The building was colder than necessary. Urban Investment Group. Brushed metal doors, hand sanitizer stations, shinier than the receptionist's high ponytail. Lobby looked like heaven and smelled like mowed contracts. We stepped into the elevator. Joylene fidgeted with her tablet. You want to review the deck? I raised an eyebrow. Baby, I didn't come to pitch, I came to confirm. She closed the screen. Elevator counted slow. 5, 4, 3. When I walked in, 3 people already sat at the boardroom. Youngish, blazers too stiff, coffee too expensive. Looked like they had Googled their own company name just that morning. I put my folder on the table. Same green leather I carried into every room since day 1. Not because it polished up the look, but because it held receipts. Not paper. Truth. Ms. May, the man on the left said, we've read your proposal, visited 2 of your sites. Staff culture is solid. I nodded once. But there are some cautions. Joylene inhaled. I didn't flinch. What cautions? He cleared his throat. Well, your onboarding format seems unscalable. Employee checklists are handwritten and stored physically. I stayed quiet. Second woman chimed in. Didn't go buy a new car. Didn't scream. Didn't call the bank 10 times to confirm it was real. I just sat in the dining room, same one that used to tremble with missed rent and thin pancake dinners, and looked around. The paint still peeled in one corner. Chair still wobbled if you leaned right. Picture of me and all 3 of my babies still crooked above the thermostat, just like always. But the air felt different. Like Respect Done moved in and unpacked its bags quietly in the corner, like it planned to stay a while. Joylene came by that morning with biscuits and an apology folded into wax paper. She ain't say the words, but her hands told me everything. Still had ink from envelope stuffing. Still had work lotion faint on her fingers. We sat on the porch while the biscuits steamed in our laps. I used to think speed was the goal, she said. I sipped my coffee. And now? I think peace is the prize. I smiled. She finally got it. Later that week, I brought Aunt Shine her favorite peach ice cream from Reynolds. This what provision tastes like? She said, 2 spoonfuls deep. You was right. She leaned back in that wicker porch rocker. When? About slow growing. She nodded. Faith with gaps and bruises gon' always outlast neat disappointment. You just now catching up. We laughed together, long and loose, like time didn't owe us nothing. Marcus called that Sunday. Said he heard about the contract. Said, Ma, I'm proud of you. His voice softer than usual, like it was lined with memory. I told him, you still think I can't scale? He chuckled. No, Ma. I think you scaled so high I didn't know how to measure it. One night a week later, I opened the door to see Ania standing there holding an envelope. 10 years older than the baby, who used to ask if toilet brushes were magic wands. Uncle Caleb said to bring this. I took it, white envelope, clean print. Inside, a brochure. Titled, Legacy in Motion, Ora Mae's Method Certification Program. Logo was small, but real. Caleb designed it. Joylene formatted it. Marcus pulled the business license. And me? My script was still on the welcome page, word for word. Start with what's in your hands. Baby girl, I said, choking. She grinned. You don't gotta teach it all yourself anymore, she said. We just need your way. Your words already work. I had to sit down. The porch steps reminded me they used to carry stripped shoes and sore knees. Now they held a woman who had built something bigger than cleaning. I had built memory into business. I went up to my room that night, put the brochure on my dresser. Next to it sat the blue pen. Still had ink in it. And next to that, a tiny sticky note written in Ania's handwriting. You built it slow, but you built it strong. Baby, that's wealth. So now let me ask you something. You ever been told you were too old, too steady, too patient? Ever watched folks run past you with hashtags and quick campaigns while you prayed over flyers and knocked doors? Did it make you wonder if you were behind? If you're still here watching, I need you to hear me. Behind is a lie whispered by folks scared to go deep. And fast? Fast don't mean done. Fast means rushed, and rushed falls apart. But you still here, still moving, still cooking, still breathing. So maybe you not behind. Maybe you bout to break through. And baby, when your breakthrough comes, make sure you sign it in ink. I tell stories just like this, stories rooted deep in dignity and truth. So if you still here, I thank you from my whole heart. Go ahead and subscribe to Tales of Ora Mae and tell me in the comments, what would you do when everybody calls you old-fashioned? But you know you're built to last? 'Cause around here, being old-fashioned, that's just another way of saying made with integrity. And integrity never expires.